Okay, great. So we're back. We're going to talk about transaction cost economics. It's a concept that's relevant to multinational corporations, but also other corporations as well. Let's talk just a little bit about organizational design first. Before we get up here. Okay. So first of all, who do we think is in charge of a firm? Well, you know, some of you would answer the CEO, some would answer the board of directors, some would answer the shareholders. Okay, you're actually all right. We'll talk more about this in corporate governance. Okay. So you've got a firm, the CEO at the top. And of course the CEO, as you know, answers to the board of directors. And the board of directors represent the interests of shareholders. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. Now the CEO typically has what they might call a staff. This is a matrix organizational structure. There are others, but this is one. And so they probably have a staff of executive officers. Think of like a COO, Chief Operations Officer. They might have a CTO, Chief Tech Officer, CHRO, Chief Human Resources, etc. That's all defined by individual firms. Okay. Now, they also will typically have, depending on, this is more relevant to manufacturing, but they'll probably have a variety of line units. Okay, so they also have a variety of line units. Now these line units will maybe, and I'm looking at more manufacturing heavy firms. Service and retail, it's a little bit different. But so you might have, let's say we're looking at a car company. Okay, so you have the CEO of the car company and you've got a variety of strategic business units. Strategic business units are kind of organizational subunits that produce kind of a function. Okay. So if we're looking at these as strategic business units, you might be looking at auto manufacturing and you say, well, you know, A produces tires, B produces windshields, they do doors, they do air conditioning, they put a lot of the stuff together, they do this, that, and the other. Okay. So transaction cost economics answers a very simple question. Do I produce these specific functions in-house within the firm, or let's say it's very expensive. Let's say H makes tires. We say, well, you know, H, it's just too expensive for us to produce tires in-house. We're not very efficient at it, whatever. Let's go ahead and search for H out in the marketplace. Okay? We'll contract that function out. Okay? So, what are the pros and cons of doing something in-house versus contracting out on the market? Okay? Well, if you do it in-house, you have total control over that operation. You can set the quality standards, those employees work for you, all that kind of good stuff. Okay? Total control over what's going on. You can tell them to start and stop production. You are the boss. Okay? Now, the disadvantage is people that are making windshields or whatever are not subject to the same pressures of the marketplace because they already have the customer. They are a strategic business unit belonging to a specific firm, and so therefore they don't have to compete in the open market. And so in theory, the production of whatever good or service that's done in-house may actually become more expensive. Okay? Maybe more expensive to do it in-house. So it's kind of a trade-off between cost and control. Okay? You have greater control, but you also have greater costs. Now you can also do it out in the marketplace, contracting out like for H out in the marketplace. And the advantage is you can greatly reduce cost. You may have speed or efficiency advantages, but you lose a degree of control. Okay? So lower cost, but also less control. So the total transaction cost, okay, for any operation, we call this TCE, transaction cost economics, or TC, transaction cost. The total cost of the transaction is the materials, the production, and what we call search cost. Let me write that out. Plus production or labor search. Okay, so material. Okay, so if we're making, for example, we'll talk about our friends in tire making. Okay, so when it comes to tire making, you know, you got the cost of the rubber and all that stuff, right? And of course the production, putting the rubber together, labor, you know, the people that actually have to make the tires themselves, or perhaps the energy cost if you're using a machine. It's also part of it, right? And then of course the search, right? Search means how long does it take you to go onto the marketplace and find a suitable supplier to produce those tires for you, okay? Now, it takes time to find a suitable supplier. Now, you can think, well, I can just go on the internet and find somebody. Well, yeah, you can just go on the internet and find somebody, but that may not be a suitable supplier. They may not produce in the terms and in the cost that you want. Okay, that's what search costs are. So time and money kind of go hand in hand. While you're searching for your tire maker, you're not producing any tires, and that's holding up everything else. That's part of search costs. Now, when the goods are produced directly within the firm, your search cost is actually zero. And you don't have to search for anybody. You already know who's going to make those tires for you. But when you go out in the market, the search cost actually starts to increase the longer you have to search for a suitable supplier. Now, on the flip side, you can hope that materials would be cheaper and production labor costs would also be cheaper, and that would offset the search cost. Okay. So the question is, are firms totally producing things out in the market, or are searching and acquiring things out in the market, or are they producing them in-house? Most firms, it's going to be a combination, right? There are some extreme examples, though, okay? Ducati, the motorcycle maker, okay, the Italian motorcycle maker. Almost everything that they do is outsourced and produced and acquired in the marketplace. All Ducati does, there's a few hundred employees, they do kind of the marketing and the promotion and that kind of stuff. Most of the heavy lifting, the production is done out in the market, okay? So for them, almost everything's done on the market. That seems to work for Ducati, and that's fine. Now, there was also an automotive maker here in the United States that contracted everything out of the market. They sent all their production overseas, and what do you think happened? Well, suddenly you had steering wheels that didn't fit into the steering column, air conditioners that didn't fit in the chassis, and tires that were the wrong size. So yeah, the stuff was produced very cheaply, but the search cost was actually very high because they had to redo the search all over again, and they actually wound up producing everything in-house at the end of the day. Okay? So how does this pertain to multinational corporations or transnational corporations? Well, typically, if you're actually going to produce something out in the market, you're more likely to go internationally because of the fact that you have lower material and production labor costs, probably. And hopefully that's enough to offset the search costs. Now, at the same time, we typically think of outsourcing or offshoring, typically offshoring especially, typically being done to low-cost countries. However, a number of developed countries also are beneficiaries of offshoring, particularly in Western Europe. Why? Well, it's true that the production and the labor costs might be quite high, but possibly the material costs might be a little bit lower. And of course, when you rely on reputable firms in overseas countries, you know that your search cost is going to be a little bit reduced. So, bottom line up front, transaction cost economics is kind of how you make the calculation. Do I produce something in-house, or do I look for it in the market, including the overseas market? And that typically relates to whether we will produce something domestically in-house or possibly contract certain parts of our supply chain out to foreign suppliers. Hopefully that makes sense, and we'll talk more about this when we meet up in class.